I've worked in hospitals for most of my adult life. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the night shift is different. During the day, hospitals feel alive, voices echoing, machines beeping, patients moving in and out. But once the clock passes midnight, those same halls turn into something else entirely. They become too quiet, too still. That's when you start noticing things you shouldn't. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. A sound you can't place. And sometimes a figure waiting in the dark. This is the story of the night I saw a patient who, by every record we had, shouldn't have been there at all. It started like any other shift. I was doing my rounds, walking the long hallway on the east wing. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above me, flickering every so often. And the air smelled like antiseptic and cold metal. Half the rooms were empty on that wing. Renovations, budget cuts, transfers. That meant most of the time I was walking down, it was just me. Or so I thought. I turned a corner and froze. At the very end of the hallway, maybe 30 feet away, I saw it. A wheelchair. Someone was sitting in it. I remember the way the figure was slumped to the side, their head tilted, thin arms resting weakly in their lap. They wore a hospital gown, pale under the buzzing lights. At first, I thought it was just a patient who'd gotten confused and rolled themselves out of their room. It happens sometimes. Dementia, delirium, late-night wandering. So I called out gently. "Hey, do you need some help?" No answer. The figure didn't move. I tried again, a little louder this time. "Sir? Ma'am? Are you okay?" Still nothing. Just that faint hum of the lights above us. So I started walking toward them. The hallway felt longer than usual. My footsteps echoed too loudly, bouncing back at me. The closer I got, the more wrong it felt. Their body wasn't shifting the way it should. No breathing, no movement, just still. I was 10 feet away when I blinked, and the chair was empty. I stood there, staring. The wheelchair was still there, sure enough, but no one was in it. The seat was bare, the footrests shining in the harsh light. My stomach dropped. I'd seen them. I know I did. I backed up slowly, my eyes scanning the doors around me. Maybe they slipped into a room without me noticing. I checked the nearest one. Empty bed. No patient. The next. Same thing. Finally, I reached the third door down. The room number made me pause. I remembered it. We used to have a patient in there. An older man, long-term care, but that couldn't be right. That room had been closed for weeks. He'd passed away. I stepped inside anyway, half expecting to see him sitting there waiting for me. But the room was stripped. No bed, no equipment, just peeling paint and dust in the corners. Still, I swear the air felt heavy, like someone had just left. For the next few nights, I tried to tell myself it was just fatigue. Night shifts mess with your head. The brain plays tricks when you're tired enough. But then, it happened again. I was at the nurse's station, charting notes, when I heard it. The squeak of wheelchair wheels. It was faint, distant, but clear, that rubbery squeal of metal rolling across linoleum. I glanced down the hall. Nothing, but the sound kept coming. I stood up, walked slowly toward the noise, my heart thumping against my ribs. The hallway stretched out ahead, empty. But the sound was right there, echoing, like something was circling me. And then I saw it. The wheelchair, parked against the wall. Only this time, the brakes were locked. It couldn't have moved. I forced myself to walk past it, refusing to look directly at the seat. But as I passed, I caught something in my peripheral vision. A pale hand, just for a split second, resting on the armrest. I spun back around, empty again. I didn't want to sound crazy, but I finally mentioned it to one of the other nurses. She gave me a long look, then sighed. "You've seen him too, haven't you?" she whispered. I felt my skin crawl. "What do you mean?" She said, "The man in the wheelchair, he used to be here, room 314, before they shut it down. Some nights, he just doesn't seem to realize he's gone." Her words stuck with me. I wanted to believe she was joking, or maybe just humoring me, but the way her voice shook told me she was dead serious. A week later, I was alone again, walking the same hall, my shift almost over. I rounded the corner, and there he was. Not 30 feet away this time. 10. The wheelchair sat in the center of the hallway, directly facing me. The figure was there, slouched, thin, head bowed forward. I froze. My throat went dry. I wanted to turn around, to run, but something in me made me step forward instead. One step, then another. As I got closer, I noticed the details. The pale skin, the gown draped over bony shoulders, the way his chest didn't rise and fall. And then he lifted his head. His eyes met mine. Empty, hollow, like two sunken shadows. His mouth opened slowly, as if trying to form words, but no sound came out. I gasped, and in that split second, the lights above flickered. When they steadied again, the wheelchair was empty. I stood there shaking, staring at the vacant chair until my vision blurred with tears. I don't remember how I finished that shift. I only know that when morning came, I asked to be reassigned to another wing. I couldn't walk that hallway again. Even now, years later, I still dream about it. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, certain I can hear the faint squeak of wheels moving across the floor. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was grief clinging to that place, shaping itself into something I could see. Or maybe some patients never really leave. I just know the man in that wheelchair is still out there, waiting.
I used to work nights as a janitor in a hospital. Most people think that job is just about mopping floors, taking out trash, maybe fixing a few things here and there. But what they don't tell you is how empty a hospital feels when everyone else is asleep. After midnight, the noise dies down. No visitors, no crowded hallways, just the hum of machines and the faint smell of disinfectant. That silence can feel endless. But sometimes it isn't really silence at all. It started one night when I was finishing up on the lower level. That floor didn't have patients. It was mostly storage, maintenance, and at the far end, the morgue. I hated being near it. Everyone did. The air down there always felt a few degrees colder, like the chill was seeping straight out of the walls. I was pushing my cart past the double doors when I heard it. Crying. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable. It sounded like a woman. Soft, broken sobs, like someone was grieving, trying to hold themselves together but falling apart in the dark. I froze. My first thought was that maybe a family member had slipped in to see someone they'd lost. It wouldn't have been the first time. So I knocked gently on the morgue door. "Hello? Is someone in there?" The crying stopped instantly. I waited a moment, then pushed the door open. The morgue was dark, except for a single buzzing light in the corner. Cold metal tables gleamed faintly, and the air hit me like ice. But there was no one there. No woman, no sound. Just the empty, silent morgue. I backed out quickly, telling myself it was probably my imagination. Long shifts, low light, and fatigue can make you hear things. But deep down, I knew what I'd heard. Over the next week, it happened again. Every time I worked that floor, just as I passed the morgue, I'd hear it. The same soft crying. Always starting faintly, always stopping the moment I got close. Sometimes it was far away, buried deep in the room. Other times it was right against the door, like someone was standing there waiting for me to open it. I started avoiding that hallway altogether. I'd take the long way around, adding an extra 10 minutes to my shift just to stay clear of the morgue. But one night, I couldn't avoid it. I was called to clean up a spill on the lower level. The only way back was straight past the morgue. As I pushed my cart down the hallway, I prayed I wouldn't hear it. I tried to focus on the squeak of the wheels, on the rhythm of my own breathing. But then it started. The crying. Louder this time. Clear. It wasn't just sobbing anymore. There were words in between. Please. Whispered things I couldn't quite understand. I stopped in front of the door, my heart hammering. This time, I didn't go in. I pressed my ear to the cold steel surface. And what I heard froze me to the bone. It wasn't just one voice. It was several. A chorus of broken cries, layered over each other, echoing as if the walls themselves were mourning. I stumbled back from the door, nearly tripping over my cart. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold on to it. I told myself I was done. Whatever was happening in there, I didn't want any part of it. But the hospital doesn't let you choose where to work. And the next week, I was scheduled for a full overnight on the lower level. That night, the crying began the moment I walked through the doors. I didn't even have to be near the morgue. The sound followed me as I mopped, as I emptied bins, as I tried to pretend everything was normal. Sometimes it was far. Other times it was so close, it felt like someone was right behind me, whispering through their tears. At one point, I swear I felt a breath on the back of my neck. I dropped my mop and ran up the stairs, not stopping until I reached the nurse's station. The next morning, I quit. I never went back to that hospital, never set foot on that floor again. People ask me why I left, and I never know how to answer. If I tell the truth, no one will believe me. But I know what I heard, night after night. The broken voices of the dead crying for something none of us could give them. Maybe grief leaves an echo. Maybe it clings to the cold steel and the tiled walls. Or maybe, whisper, the morgue was never really empty. Even now, years later, I still wake up sometimes in the dark, and I swear, if the night is quiet enough, I can still hear them crying.
I worked nights at a hospital for almost 5 years. Most of the time, it was quiet, predictable even. But there was one thing I could never explain. One room, room 207. Every few nights, without fail, the phone at the nurse's station would ring. And when we picked it up, we'd hear the same thing. An old man's voice, weak, raspy, and desperate. "Can someone come help me, please?" The first time I answered, I didn't think anything of it. I checked the chart, saw the call had come from room 207, and went down the hall. The lights were dim, the floor polished and empty. When I reached the room, the door was slightly open. I pushed it gently, expecting to find a patient struggling to breathe or tangled in their IV line. But the room was empty. Completely. The bed was stripped, tucked neatly. The monitors were off. No patient. No old man. Nothing. I remember standing there, phone still in my hand, my mind racing to catch up. Had I misread the call? Was it from another room? I checked again. No mistake. It was 207. Over the next few weeks, it kept happening. Sometimes it was just a faint cough, sometimes a whisper. "Hello? Please don't leave me here." Every time we'd check, and every time the room was empty. Some of the staff started joking about it. "Guess old 207's lonely tonight." But no one ever laughed too hard, because no one could explain it. One night, I asked one of the older nurses about it. She'd been there for decades, longer than anyone else on staff. She didn't look surprised when I brought it up. In fact, she just sighed. like she'd been waiting for me to ask. There used to be a patient in 207, an old man, came in alone, no family. He was here for months. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. He died in that room. Some say he didn't go quietly. I didn't want to press her, but the way she said it made my stomach twist. One night, around 3 a.m., the phone rang again. I was the only one at the station. I answered, already knowing what I'd hear. But this time, it was different. The old man's voice was clearer, stronger. "Don't leave me, please. It's so cold in here." Then a sound that chilled me. The shuffle of feet, the creak of the bed springs, like someone was moving inside that empty room. I felt frozen, the phone pressed against my ear. My instinct told me not to go, to ignore it. But something else, call it duty, call it morbid curiosity, pulled me down that hallway. The door was closed this time. That alone was strange. We always left it open. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. I pushed it open slowly, bracing myself. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of the hallway behind me. The bed was made, the air cold and stale. At first, it looked normal, empty. But then I heard it. Breathing. Shallow, raspy, coming from the far corner. I squinted into the shadows, my pulse racing, and for a split second, I saw him. An old man, thin, pale, sitting hunched in the chair by the window, his face lost in the dark. I blinked, and the chair was empty. I slammed the door shut and stumbled back, nearly falling into the wall. My chest was heaving, my vision swimming. When I finally caught my breath, I realized the phone was still in my hand. And on the other end, the line was still open. The old man's voice whispered right against my ear. "Don't go." Then I dropped the phone. After that night, I refused to take calls from 207. If the phone rang, I let someone else answer. But the calls didn't stop. They never stopped. Some nights, I still wonder, what if I'd stayed in that room longer? What if I'd spoken to him? Would he have answered? Would he have told me why he was still there? Or would I have never come back out at all? Some nights, I can still hear the ring in my dreams, and I wake up terrified because I know one day I might pick it up again.
Working nights in a hospital is nothing like the daytime. During the day, the halls buzz with visitors, doctors rushing between patients, stretchers wheeling in and out. But after midnight, everything changes. The fluorescent lights flicker just a little dimmer. The air feels heavier. And the silence? It follows you everywhere. I was used to it, or at least I thought I was. My job as a supply tech meant moving equipment back and forth all night long. Extra IV stands, oxygen tanks, wheelchairs, you name it. Most nights, I spent more time with the elevators than with people. And maybe that's why I noticed when something was wrong. It was about 2 a.m. when it first happened. I was pushing a cart of supplies from the ER down the storage. The storage rooms were in the basement, B2. Nothing unusual about that. I pressed the button for the basement, leaned back against the cart and listened to the hum of the old elevator. But instead of stopping at B2, the light on the panel flickered. B3. I frowned. There wasn't a B3. The hospital only had 2 basement levels. The elevator shuddered, then kept going down. When the door slid open, my first thought was that it had to be some kind of service tunnel. The air was stale and damp. A long, narrow hallway stretched out, lined with peeling white tiles. The lights overhead buzzed, some of them dead, leaving stretches of shadow. I wheeled my cart forward a few feet, trying to figure out where I was. The hallway didn't match any floor I'd ever seen. No signage, no doors, no equipment, just bare, echoing walls. I should have turned back right then, but something about it felt expectant, like the place had been waiting for me. I hit the up button immediately. The doors closed with a groan, and when they opened again, I was back at B2. I told myself it was a glitch. Old elevators do strange things all the time. But the next night, it happened again. Same cart, same floor, same time. The panel flickered B3, the elevator rattled, and the doors opened onto that same hallway. This time, I didn't step out. I just stood there, staring into the dark. For a moment, I thought I heard something. Faint, distant, a shuffling maybe, or whispering. I hit the close button and didn't look back. Over the next week, it became a pattern. Every time I worked the late shift, every time I took that elevator past midnight, it wanted to go to B3. Sometimes it skipped right past the basement entirely, ignoring the button I pressed. The other staff joked when I mentioned it. They said, "Lucky you, you found the ghost floor." But there was nothing funny about it, because each time, the hallway looked just a little different. Once, I thought I saw doors at the far end. Another time, the walls seemed wet, like something had seeped through the tiles. And once, only once, I swear I saw a figure, tall, thin, standing just beyond the flickering light. When I blinked, it was gone. One night, against every bit of common sense, I decided to stay. I let the elevator take me to B3. When the doors slid open, I pushed my cart out and let the doors close behind me. The sound echoed immediately, metal shutting me in. The air was colder here, damp enough that I could see my breath. I walked slowly down the hallway, each squeak of my cartwheels bouncing off the walls. The hallway stretched farther than it should have, longer than the entire hospital above. I started to feel disoriented, like I was walking into a place that shouldn't exist. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Not mine. They came from behind me at first, then ahead, then all around. The echoes twisted until I couldn't tell where they were. I froze, my heart hammering, and then a voice whispered, "Don't go up." My blood ran cold. It was so close, like someone had leaned right against my ear. I spun around, but the hallway was empty, just buzzing lights and shadows. I ran back the way I came, pushing my cart and my breath ragged. When I reached the elevator doors, they were closed. No button panel in sight. I slammed my hands against the wall, searching until suddenly the panel flickered to life. I jabbed the up button again and again. The doors creaked open, and I stumbled inside, nearly collapsing on the floor. When the doors opened again, I was back at B2. But the panel was dark. No B3. As if it had never existed. I never told anyone exactly what happened. I just avoided that elevator even if it meant hauling supplies up the stairs. But sometimes, when the hospital is quiet and I pass that elevator, I hear it. The faint hum of it moving, even when no one has called it. And once, I swear I saw the panel flicker, just for a second. B3. I don't know what's down there. I don't want to know. But I can't stop thinking about that voice. The way it whispered, urgent and desperate. Don't go up. I thought it was warning me about the hallway, but now I wonder, what if it wasn't? What if it was trying to warn me about the elevator itself? And one day, when those doors close behind me, I won't be able to come back up at all.
Most people assume working in a hospital morgue is unbearable. Too grim, too cold, too full of things no one wants to think about. But the truth is, it's quiet, predictable. No patients to argue with, no phones ringing, no chaos. Just stillness. I worked nights down there for almost 2 years, checking in bodies, logging paperwork, making sure the refrigeration stayed steady. It was never scary to me, not at first, until the knocking started. It was around 1 a.m., and I was finishing paperwork at the small desk just inside the morgue. That's when I heard it. A faint tap, tap, tap. I froze, pen still in hand. It was coming from the wall of drawers behind me, the long, cold steel compartments where we kept the bodies. At first, I thought it was just the pipes. Old buildings creak and rattle at night. But then it happened again. Clear, steady. Tap, tap, tap. I turned slowly, staring at the rows of drawers. The sound was coming from one of the middle ones. I checked the log. The drawer belonged to a man who'd been brought in that afternoon. I told myself it was impossible. Just metal contracting in the cold, nothing more. But I didn't sleep well that day. Over the next week, the knocking kept happening. Always after midnight, always from a different drawer. Sometimes it was soft, like fingertips brushing the inside. Other times it was violent, pounding. Once it went on for nearly a full minute. I just sat at my desk, frozen, every hair on my body standing on end. When I finally got the courage to check, every drawer was silent, still. The other techs laughed at me. They said ghosts don't knock, man, they float. But I could see the unease in their eyes, because they'd heard it too. I started keeping notes. Every time I heard the knocking, I wrote down the drawer number, the time, And who was inside? At first, there was no connection. Different patients, different ages, different causes of death. But then I noticed something. Every single one of them had died suddenly, unexpectedly. Accidents, heart attacks, suicides. None of them had time to say goodbye. That's when I stopped laughing at myself. One night, the knocking was different. Slower, more deliberate. I stood up, heart racing, and walked toward the drawer. I pressed my ear to the cold steel. At first, it was just the steady tap, tap, tap. But then it changed. Tap, tap, pause, tap. Like a pattern. Like someone trying to spell something out. I backed away quickly, nearly tripping over my own feet. My mouth went dry. It wasn't random. It was communication. The worst night was a stormy one. The power flickered, the backup generator humming in the dark. Around 3 a.m., the knocking started again. Louder than ever. This time, it wasn't just one drawer. It was several. A chorus of pounding fists hammering from the inside, shaking the steel. I covered my ears, but I could still hear it, feel it, vibrating through the floor, through my bones. Then, all at once, it stopped. The silence after was worse than the noise. I turned back toward the drawers, trembling, and one of the handles was moving. Just slightly, but enough. Enough to know something inside was trying to get out. I ran that night. I left the morgue unlocked, lights still on, paperwork unfinished. I quit the next morning, never went back. Sometimes, though, I wonder, were they trying to get out, or just trying to be heard? Maybe some part of them was still trapped, desperate to tell someone what happened. And maybe, just maybe, they're still knocking.